Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with all my blushes and I'm gonna rank them for you. So I have quite a lot of blushes to get through, but before we jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just start with the blush that's on the bottom. So before we jump into the first blush, I just want to let you know that I currently have 35 blushes in my collection. So it is a bit more excessive and a bit more than my highlighters, which I did last month. But I'm going to start with the blush that is my least favorite. And for that I chose the Physicians Formula Butter Blush in the shade Plum Rose. So with this blush, this is what it looks like. And the reason why this is my least favorite is because this is just such a kind of neutral blush that it doesn't really show up on me, and it's kind of like a plummy bronzy, I think, yeah, so it's supposed to be plum rose, and has some slight plum undertones to it, but it's mainly just looks like a contour powder almost. And maybe I should use it as that, because as a blush it just makes me look like I have a bruise or something like that. So it's not my favorite blush, and that is why I'm ranking this at the bottom. And also I won't be swatching all of these blushes because, like I said, I have 35 and it will probably be a lot to swatch them all out. But yeah, this is the one that's on the bottom. The second to last blush is this blush from Nars. This is actually, I think this is a blush, but it's basically more like a highlighter for me. I bought this for a blush topper because I have a blush topper that I really like, or I think that's a highlighter, but I use it as blush topper from MAC, which we'll get to later obviously. And I want something similar in a pinkier tone. I picked this up. This is in the shade Free Soul, and this is just like a really kind of light pinkish shimmery shade, and it is pretty. I feel like I could probably use this more as a highlighter than a blush, and maybe I should try doing that instead, because as a blush this is just way too light and it just makes me look really frosty on the cheeks, and that's why I'm ranking this second to last. The next blush we have to talk about is actually a liquid blush. This is one of the tints from Benefit, and this in the shade Lolly Tint. The reason why I don't love this is because it's a very kind of blue toned purpley blush. I'm going to show you the wand, hopefully you will be able to see it there. And it's just not right for my skin tone. It's too kind of purpley. I do love a cool tone blush, like a really bright blue tone pink, but since this is more purple, I don't think it's the best undertone for me, and that is why this is ranking quite low. The next blush is one that is currently in my Shop My Stash, and that is the blush Adoration from Nars. This is one of their dual intensity blushes, and it is what it looks like. The reason why this is not my favorite is because the blush is quite pigmented and it's not the right undertone again for me. I don't know what it is exactly about it. I feel like these pinks usually look good on me. I think it's just with the pigmentation and the kind of deep undertone in it, it just doesn't work perfectly for me. I think this will be perfect if you have a deeper skin tone, but then again you have this lighter side, which I'm not really sure how you could use if you have a deeper skin tone. So yeah, this is not my favorite. I am using it, like I said, in my Shop My Stash currently. So I'm getting some use out of it, but I think using it in that has made me realize that it's definitely not my favorite. Then the next two blushes are also actually two Nars blushes, but we're getting into the blushes that I still enjoy a bit more. The ones that I talked about so far are blushes that I don't really enjoy and reach for much at all. But the Rust moving forward, which is majority of my blushes, I do actually like reaching for from time to time. But the first one out of those and the next blush in my ranking is my Matahari blush from Nars. So this is what this blush looks like. This is one of those really blue toned pink blushes. The reason why this is ranking lower than some of the other ones that I have in this kind of color family is because, again, it is more of a plum kind of base than just a pure pink. So that is why this blush is ranking quite low again, but it's not a blush that I hate. I just have to be a bit careful with how I use it. Next blush is a mini from Nars, and this is in the shade Gold, I think. This was one of the birthday gifts, I believe, or Point Perk from Sephora. Well, actually it might have been the VIB Rouge gift. Anyway, it was a gift from Sephora. I didn't pick this up, but I'm ranking this quite low again because I think you can see on camera that it has, again, that kind of plummy undertone, and I just realized that that is not my favorite on my skin tone. So it is quite a nice blush, and I feel like this will suit a lot of people. It's just something when I wear this I don't absolutely love, but again, it's something that I do reach for every now and then, but I usually have other blushes that I like reaching for more. The next two blushes are both tints from Benefit again, and they're both minis. The first one is the Cha-Cha tint, and this is more of a kind of orangey tone. It looks like this, so I'm hoping you can see that it's quite an orange one. I have used this tons as a lipstick stain actually. I used this back in the day all the time. It used to be my go-to kind of going out lip before liquid lipsticks were a thing, so I have used it quite a bit, but it's not my favorite as a blush, so that is why I'm ranking this quite low. Then the next one is one that I'm actually currently panning, and I have started to like this a bit more now than I used to, because I used to never reach for this kind of product, especially this one, and this is the Benefit tint from Benefit. So it's the original tint they created, and it just kind of creates a flushed look, which I do appreciate, but the formula is just so liquid so that if I'm not careful when I apply this, it just runs down my cheeks and creates a mess. So I think the formula is more the reason why I'm ranking this quite low compared to the actual colors, but yeah, this is the next blush. The next blush in the ranking is one that I actually haven't used more than I think once. This is a blush from Clinique in the shade Precious Posy. I got this from a colleague when she was clearing out some of her makeup, and yeah, it looks beautiful, but I only used it I think once on my cheeks. And the reason why I'm ranking this a bit lower is because the formula is quite dry. It's not my favorite, but the blush itself looks quite nice, and I think this would be a nice kind of everyday blush for a lot of people, and even for me. But just from the initial kind of impression as well from the formula, it's not my favorite, and that's why I'm ranking it kind of in the middle. The next blush is my last tint from Benefit. These are all ranking quite low. This is one that I currently have in my Partners in Cream project pan, and this is the Posy tint. This is more kind of the, I don't know, peachy pink out of the bunch. So we had the Lolly tint, which was very kind of blue toned, purpley pink, and then we have the Cha-Cha tint, which is more orangey, and then this one is more of the peachy orange. So I think out of all of the colors, this one is probably my favorite. And then, like I said, we have the Benefit tint as well, which is more the classic kind of flushed look. But yeah, I do like this color, but again, the formula is a bit fiddly, and that's why I'm ranking it a bit lower. The next blush is one from Benefit again, but this is one of the box blushes. I only have the mini in this, but this is the California blush. The reason why I'm ranking this a bit lower is because it's just a really orangey kind of pigmented blush, and I do love these tones, but it's just a bit too bright in my opinion. I've heard that the mini blushes from Benefit can be a bit different than the full sizes, so I can't speak for that one, but yeah, this one is just not my favorite. It's a bit chalky and it's very bright, so I feel like I do reach for this sometimes when I do want that really bright kind of flush look, but I can't really pair that with every eyeshadow look and things like that, so I don't reach for this very often, and when I do reach for this, it's more of a kind of blush focused look, and that's why I'm ranking it on the lower end of my blushes. Next up we have a classic. I think this is one of my older blushes in my collection, and this is the Milani Luminous Baked Blush. I do think this is a pretty blush, and I have used this quite a bit, but the reason why I'm ranking this a bit lower is because I have another blush in a really similar tone that I like more, and I don't know why, but it's just something about this blush that I don't really love anymore. What I do like is that it's buildable. I think this will work for a lot of people because it does build up, although if you have a deeper complexion, I don't think this will work because it will probably look a bit too chalky for you. But this is one of those blushes that I don't absolutely love, I don't absolutely hate. It's just kind of a matte blush for me, and it is beautiful on the cheeks. I don't really know why that is, but I don't know if it's the packaging or because it is kind of like a dupe for something else in my collection, but yeah, it's just not my favorite. The next blush might come as a surprise for a lot of people, because I know a lot of people think this is like the perfect blush, and I know a lot of people would even say that this is their favorite blush, and that is the Frat Boy blush from The Balm. Looking at it in the pan, it looks like something that I would absolutely love, and it is quite a nice peachy pink, more on the pink side, and I feel like when I do reach for it, I do like it, but I always think it looks prettier in the pan than it does on my skin tone, and I don't know if that's because it doesn't really go with my skin tone, or if that's because I don't like the color itself, or what it is, but I always feel like I'm disappointed when I do reach for this blush because it's very hyped by other people, and yeah, I just feel like it looks different on my cheeks than it does in the pan. So I'm ranking this on the lower side of my blushes, but I do like it still. And like I said, most of my blushes I do actually like, but yeah, it's just not something that I reach for on an everyday basis. Next up we have another one of my Clinique blushes, but this is kind of the formula that I absolutely love. I have 3 of these blushes and this is my least favorite. This is in the shade Berry Pop and it's one of their Cheek Pop blushes. It looks like this. It's quite a bright blue toned purpley pink, and similar to some of the other tones I've talked about before, it's just a bit too purple for me, but since the formula is so great, I wanted to rank it a bit higher still. And when I do want those kind of plummy, purpley tones, I do reach for this one compared to the other ones that I showed you before. So it is a mid kind of blush for me. If I were to declutter any of the Clinique blushes in this formula, it would definitely be this one, because the other 2 I do rank quite high. Next up we have one of my Becca blushes. This one is in the shade Camellia, and this is one of the Luminous blushes. I think this is quite a similar kind of tone to the last one, just a tad bit lighter, and then it has that kind of shift to it, so it's quite a luminous blush, as the name would suggest. I do like this one, but again, it's not my favorite. When I saw this in the store and swatched it, I thought this would be an absolute perfect blush for me, because I do love those blue tone pinks, but again, it just has a little bit too much kind of purple in it for me to love it. And yeah, it's just not my absolute favorite, but I do again like it more than some of the other ones that I already showed you. The next blush is a cream blush in my collection, and this one comes from Kiko. This is one of the Glow Touch blushes in the shade Intuition Peach. This blush looks like this, and I do love this one, and I used to absolutely adore this blush, but I haven't reached for it in a long time, and I feel like this one I actually have to test out to see if it's still good, because like I said, I haven't reached for it in a long time, and it's a cream blush. But when it comes to the actual blush, it is the perfect peachy pink shade, and it's a very kind of glowy cream blush, which I like. So I feel like this is something that I should reach for more, but I just haven't been kind of in the mood for this blush. So I need to kind of try it out to see if it breaks me out, and or if the formula has changed at all. And if it's still good, I definitely will make a point to reach for this more, because it is cream and I do like it, but yeah, it's just kind of not been my favorite recently. I think the next blush marks the middle of all of my ranking. I think I am right dead in the center, and this one comes from Sleek, and it's one of their blushes in the shade Pixie Pink. This is what it looks like, and this is the blue tone pink that I've been talking about. So this is more of a bright kind of blue tone pink. I'm going to compare it to one of the blushes I showed you before. So although they look quite similar, you can see that this one just has a bit more kind of, I don't know, a deeper undertone. And I know I said this has like purpleness to it, but when I put them next to each other, I feel like this has more purple to it. But it's just something about these tones that I don't love, whereas with this one, which is a bit lighter and brighter, I absolutely adore. The reason why this is not in the top is because I have another blush which is a very similar kind of effect that I much prefer, and that is why this isn't higher. But I do love this one, and if you are looking for something similar to what I'm going to show you later, this is a really good dupe for that. But yeah, it is a nice blush, but I don't reach for this too much because of the other blush that I'm going to mention later. The next blush that I have is a cult favorite, and this is probably the most famous product from this whole brand, and that is Orgasm from Nars. So this is like a peachy pink blush with a gold shift to it, as you can see, and I do like this one, but I have another one from Nars that I do prefer. I have quite a few actually that I prefer from this. It's just, I feel like I like this, but it's just not kind of the perfect blush for me. It's a bit too golden, the shift is a bit too strong, and yeah, I think it is nice, but it is almost too overhyped in my opinion. But I am glad to have it in my collection, especially for reference and things like that. But yeah, it's not something that I would ever rank in the top of my blushes. The next blush is another one of the Clinique blushes that I was talking about, and this one is in the shade Peach Pop. So this is obviously a peach color, as you can see, and I do really love this one. It's one that I reach for a lot in summer and in spring, and when it comes to peach blushes like this, this is kind of the tone that I do love. Kind of slightly lighter blushes that can lean a bit more neutral or a bit more, I don't know, you can share them out basically. So I do love this one, and again, this formula is absolutely amazing, and I should actually pick up more of these blushes because I do adore them. But as you can tell in this video, I have way too many blushes and I definitely don't need to pick up anymore, so I won't be doing that anytime soon, but it is an absolutely beautiful blush. So the next blush is the one that I was talking about when I talked about Luminoso. This is the Coralisa blush from Benefit. It looks like this, and I actually have pan on this as well. I've had this blush for absolutely ages and I do like it, but it's not my favorite anymore. But I do prefer this so much more than Luminoso. I'm gonna pull them up and show you both of them just to see the kind of difference between them, because I always thought that these are almost dupes. I hope you can see that they are very, very similar. If anything, this is just slightly deeper than this is, but the tone is basically exactly the same, and so is the sheen. Actually maybe the base is the same, but it's just that this has a bit more sheen in there before it shows a bit lighter, but they are very similar, and that's why I'm ranking this a bit lower, because I do prefer this one. I think maybe that is because this one has slightly less sheen to it, but yeah, I do love this blush and I'm really happy to have pan on this. And as you can see, I don't have pan on many blushes in my collection, so it is really exciting to me to see that. Next up we have another Nars blush, and this one is in the shade Deep Throat, which is the one that I feel like Orgasm should have been for me. This looks like this. It's kind of again like a peachy pink, but it doesn't have as intense of a golden shift to it, and I much prefer this blush. I feel like every time I want to reach for Orgasm, I reach for this one instead, because it's just slightly kind of my tone more than Orgasm. And yeah, the sheen in this is not nearly as intense, so I prefer this one, and I definitely recommend this one if you own Orgasm but feel like it's just slightly off. You might want to try this one instead, because they are quite similar, but this one is much better in my opinion. Next up we have a blush that I kind of rediscovered through my Shop My Stash series. This is the Bobbi Brown Shimmer Brick Compact in the shade Nectar. And the reason why I kind of rediscovered this is because when I first looked at this, or when I had it in my collection, I thought this was again one of those kind of plummy, pinky blushes that I don't love. But actually swatching this out and starting to use it, I realized this is more of a peachy pink blush, which I love, and you can kind of tell from what I mentioned before that I do really enjoy. So I did rediscover this blush, and it's now kind of on the top end of my blushes rather than the bottom end. And yeah, I'm really excited to have rediscovered this blush, and I do really like it now. It's more of a summer blush for me, so I probably won't reach for this much more this year, but next spring I'm definitely going to pull this out earlier in the year and use it a bit more. So yeah, it's a blush that I now really adore in my collection. The next blush comes from Max Factor, and this one is one of the cream puff blushes in the shade Lovely Pink. This blush looks like this, and as you can see, it's a very pale pink blush. The reason why I really like this is because if I want a blush that just gives me a slight flush but isn't too overpowering, or if I have like an eye look going on that I just don't know what blush to go for and I just don't want it to be too overpowering, I reach for something like this. So a blush like this is something I always want to have in my collection. I don't need more than one of them. This is similar to the Benefit, I think it's Dandelion blush, which I used to have as well, although this is a bit more shimmery. I did pan the Dandelion blush, so now I only have this one, and I think this is something that I probably could pan again in the future, because it's just something that's really easy to reach for on an everyday basis. And yeah, it's a beautiful blush, especially for the price, and it is again a really nice formula. It's a bit kind of sheeny and it's really beautiful on the cheeks. The next blush is one of the newer blushes in my collection, but I still had this for I think 2 years now, so that just shows how little blushes I have picked up recently. This one is a blush from Benefit, and this is the Gold Rush blush. This one is a warm golden nectar blush, as it says on the background, and I would kind of agree with that. It's more of a neutral tone blush, but it has this kind of peachiness to it, and it has a kind of sheen going through it again. This is quite a neutral blush, similar to the last one, obviously a really different tone. If I want like a bronzy kind of summery cheek that is not too overpowering on the blush side, I do reach for something like this. And since it has a sheen in it, you look really healthy when you wear this, and it's just a really nice blush from Benefit. I kind of picked this up on a whim because I looked at the blush and I felt like I didn't have much like this in my collection, which is kind of true. I do have something that is a little bit similar but not exactly, and I really have been loving it ever since. So it is a newer blush in my collection, like I said, but I really love this one. Next up we have another Nars blush. I have quite a few of them, as you can see. This one is in the shade Taj Mahal. I heard about this blush from Too Much Tash, I believe, and when she talked about this I knew I needed to have it, because as you can see, this is a very unique color in my collection. I feel like this is something that I definitely can't reach for with every look, but if I want something that is very warm toned, very kind of, I don't know, like almost sunburnt, but more on the orangey side, obviously, I do reach for this one. It's beautiful as a summer and autumn blush, and it's just such a unique color that I need to like rank this a bit higher, because I feel like they did an awesome job of creating this blush, because I haven't really seen many blushes like this, and it is beautiful when I do reach for it, but it is something that I have to be quite selective with. The next blush is the last one of the Clinique blushes. This one is in Plum Pop, and it's definitely my favorite out of the three that I own. So this one might look really similar to Berry Pop, but again, it's just that kind of slight difference in undertone. This one is the one I like, this one is the one that's slightly off for me. I think looking at all of the comparisons, I kind of realized what I don't like is when it's a bit deeper and a bit more, I don't know how to describe this. This is a bit more cooler to pink, and this one is a bit more kind of almost like a reddish maroon pink, if that makes sense. Anyway, I do love this blush, and it's definitely one of my favorite blue tone pink blushes. And as you can see, hopefully I've started to wear away the pattern quite a lot on this blush, and yeah, I definitely rate this blush very high. The next blush is the second of my sleep blushes. This one is in the shade Life's a Peach, and I absolutely adore this blush. It's very bright, but it's still quite buildable. I feel like this blush is getting a bit older now, so the formula isn't as good as it used to be, but this shade is just unbeatable, and I absolutely love this. It's almost a neon peachy color, more on the orange side than the pink side. I wouldn't really say there's much pink in this at all, but I absolutely love this blush, and if you're looking for a bright summer blush, this is absolutely perfect. The next blush I have comes from Becca, and this is one of my kind of more neutral blushes in my collection. This one is in the shade Wild Honey, and this is just one of their mineral blushes, not the luminous blushes. This one, as you can see, is more of a brown tone blush, and this is another one that I reach for quite a lot when I don't know what to wear, and I just want something that can go with any look that I create. So this is one that I rank quite high again. We are in my top 10 now, definitely. I think the last three blushes that I talked about is in the top 10 now. So yeah, it's a beautiful blush, and if you're looking for a nice neutral brownie tone blush, this is absolutely stunning. Speaking of neutral blushes, the next one is also quite a neutral blush. This one is Luster from Nars. I feel like this one and Wild Honey are quite similar, but then when you look at them, they're still a bit different. So this one is a bit more brown, whereas this one is a slight bit more kind of peachy, and this one also has a gold sheen running through it, but they are quite similar. I do prefer this because it has a slight bit more color to it, and it's also more of a sheeny blush. I don't always want that, but it is something that I reach for quite often. So this is another blush that I really rate highly, and it's my second favorite blush from Nars, so you know that we have another one coming up later. But I do love this color, and Luster is an absolute perfect fall blush as well, so it's one that I will reach for quite a lot now in the upcoming months. So we are now in my top 5, and the next blush is one that used to be my all-time holy grail favorite blush, and that is the Dior Rosy Glow blush. And this one is one that is supposed to be like pH kind of activated, or kind of adapts to your skin tone, things like that, but I'm not really sure how much of a like real thing that is, or if that's a gimmick. But this is what the blush looks like. Don't mind this kind of bottom part. It crumbled and I tried to repress it, and then this is this weird thing, as you can see, it turned like white. So I'm really happy I didn't try to repress all of it. I just kind of pressed down what broke, because yeah, it did like a weird thing. But I absolutely love this blush, and this is the one that I talked about being a dupe for the Pixie Pink blush, which I will pull up and show you. And I'm hoping you can see there that these two are quite similar. This one is a bit more bright, this one is a bit more muted, which is crazy because this is a super bright blush as well. But this is just something that I love reaching for, and this is my favorite blue tone pink blush, and I used to reach for this every single day, and it's something that I treasure very much in my collection. I do kind of want to use this one up though and replace it, because I've had this for such a long time, and with this weird kind of thing that happened when I tried to repress it, I just want to replace it and have a fresh one in my collection. So I am trying to use this up, but as you can see, it's not going too well. And yeah, it's just one that I adore so much. and although I don't reach for it as much anymore, I think it's one that I will always have in my collection. The next one is the newest blush in my collection, and I picked this up just over a month ago now, I believe, and that is the Nars Skin Glazing Gloss Skin Finish Glow Powder in the shade Independence. So this is one of the glow powders from Nars, and it looks like this. As you can see, it is kind of like a mauve neutral colored blush, and it's quite a glowing one as well. I absolutely adore this formula. I haven't tried any of the skin glazing powders from Nars before, but this is a really good formula, and it's quite a kind of sheer powder, but it's still quite pigmented, but not overly pigmented. It blends out like a dream, and it has that sheen to it that makes your skin look really healthy. So I've reached for this a couple times. Obviously I only had it for just over a month, but every time I reach for this, I absolutely love the look that I come up with, so I just had to put this up in my top 5. The next blush is one that I was working on quite a lot over the summer because I had this in my project pan, and this one is the MAC Fairly Precious Extra Dimension Skin Finish, and it looks like this. So this is the one that I talked about before, that is a highlighter that I use as a blush topper. So since I love this one so much, I picked up that Free Soul blush from Nars that was all the way down at the bottom to kind of have that as a similar thing, but in a pinky tone, but they're not at all the same. So I absolutely love this, and as hopefully as you can see there, I did hit pan on this in the project as well, so I showed a lot of love to this blush, but it's just beautiful, and I reached for this tons and tons in summer because it just makes you look so healthy and tanned and just absolutely beautiful. So I really love this blush, and I'm not sure you can pick this up anymore, but if you can, I definitely recommend this because I think this will look beautiful on basically everyone, either as a highlighter or a blush topper. So we are down to my top 2 blushes, and the one that comes in second place is my Rockateur blush from Benefit. So this is a really nice kind of neutral blush again, and I feel like why I love this so much is because it is quite transforming. If I pair this with warmer tones and a lot of bronzer, it leans more on the peachy side, but if I am a bit fairer, or can I pair this with kind of cooler tones, it comes off as more of a mauve blush. So I love this because it can be so versatile, and it's just a beautiful formula, and the color is absolutely stunning. So this is my second favorite blush, and I absolutely love this. Then you guys, we have finally reached the top blush in my collection, and I haven't mentioned this in the video, but ranking these were really hard because I have so many blushes, and obviously you have different tones, different colors, different like formulas, different finishes, things like that, and it's really hard to rank. So it was very difficult to choose a favorite, but I just had to go with this one because every time I reach for this, it is something that I just love the look of, and I'm wearing this today, although I have a cream blush underneath it. And this is the Nars blush in the shade Gina. So this is what this blush looks like. It's just like a light kind of pastel peach, I would say. It's a bit more on the neutral side compared to some of the other ones that I've shown you that are a bit more brighter, and I think that this one that I can like reach for all the time, and it goes with almost every single look. If I go for really cool tones, it might not always go with those colors, but like 95% of the time this goes with the look I create. And also when I do reach for this, I never really go over the top because of the tone of it. It's just perfect for my skin tone, and yeah, I just love this blush so much. So yeah, that you guys was all of the blushes, and this one falls all the way up at the top. So that was it for this video. I think this is going to be quite a long one, so I hope you have stayed to the end, and if you did, please let me know down below which is your favorite blush in your collection. And other than that, I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'm gonna talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!